familiar drag. You're staring at a task, feeling totally overwhelmed maybe, or just finding it impossibly hard to get started.
Oh, absolutely. That looming deadline. Or maybe it's a personal project you really genuinely want to tackle, but something just stops you.
Yeah, that sticky feeling of procrastination. I think we've all been there, sort of trapped in that loop.
It's a truly universal human experience, I think, feeling stuck like that. And often, it's not really about laziness or lacking desire.
Wow.
It's frequently a sign that our brains, which are incredibly clever, are actually trying to protect us, even if their methods sometimes, lead us a bit astray.
That's a really crucial distinction. Okay, so if it's not laziness, what is it then? How do we start to figure out what's actually going on up there, beyond just feeling stuck?
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly why we're excited for today's deep dive. Welcome everyone to the deep dive. Our mission, as always, is to cut through all the noise and get right to the heart of what matters. And today we're diving into what we're calling the Therapist Handbook talk. We're going to explore how we can challenge those really frustrating patterns, especially procrastination, using some powerful insights from the Therapist's handbooks.
We'll be looking at an approach that integrates principles like ACT therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. And it's all seen through this fascinating lens of how our brains actually change.
Neuroplasticity, right?
Exactly. So our goal for you today is to give you a clear, actionable roadmap to understand why we get stuck. And maybe more importantly, how we can gently but really powerfully retrain our minds to move forward.
And this approach is guided by what truly matters to you. It provides practical tools that, importantly, respect how your brain actually works.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Why do we get stuck? The therapist's handbooks explain that our brains are, brilliantly designed for protection, like a really sophisticated security system.
A very old one sometimes. Right. But sometimes this system can get a little overzealous.
Yeah.
You can get stuck in these old loops, sounding alarms even when there's no real danger, like an old safety program just stuck on repeat.
And what's fascinating is how these protective patterns show up in our daily lives. The handbooks introduce this idea of inner characters or modes. These represent our emotional patterns.
Like different parts of ourselves.
Sort of, yeah. They use this great metaphor of an inner Springfield, like The Simpsons, where these aren't flaws, but they're often learned shortcuts. You could also think of them as different internal mindsets that maybe take the steering wheel more often than you realize.
Okay, like the stage crew in your head kind of calling the shots behind the scenes.
Exactly, often without you even noticing.
So these characters are active players then. What's the practical impact when they're running the show? How do they, keep us feeling stuck?
Well, some of them are probably quite familiar. You might recognize the Lisa syndrome. That's the overthinking, the perfectionism that leads to, analysis paralysis instead of action. I know that one.
Or maybe you've met your inner Homer syndrome, that impulsivity, the escapism, avoiding difficult feelings with quick fixes that, they don't solve the core issue.
And then there's the Marge syndrome, right? That sounds like over-responsibility, maybe guilt, overcompensating.
Yeah, exactly. Getting burned out, trying to fix everything for everyone else, which leaves zero energy for your own stuff.
Right.
And, of course, the Bart syndrome, rebellion, avoidance, just pretending problems don't exist.
Okay, so the big insight here isn't that these are character flaws, but they're learned coping strategies.
That's the key. Once you recognize them as patterns, not, personal failings, you gain the power to gently start retraining your brain out of these old, unhelpful habits.
That really clarifies how our brains can sometimes work against us. So these inner characters, they're feeding into what the therapist handbooks call the deepening loop or ecosystem.
Exactly. Picture it. Thoughts, sensations, behaviors, they all feed into each other. They reinforce the patterns that keep us stuck. So like a negative thought, maybe I'll fail.
Leads to anxiety, that's the sensation.
Which then leads to avoidance, the behavior.
And that avoidance, ironically, just reinforces the original thought. See? It was dangerous.
Ah, right. Yeah.
But the key insight here is you don't have to tackle the entire cycle at once. If you gently interrupt any part of that loop, the thought, the sensation, the behavior, you create a tiny opening for change.
So even small acts of just noticing are powerful.
Very powerful.
And that cycle often shows up as the avoidance trap, right? The handbooks call it the pain-numbing app.
Yeah, that's a great metaphor. It feels like a brilliant short-term escape from discomfort, doesn't it? You get that immediate relief.
Totally.
But it ironically strengthens the very patterns you're trying to escape. Each time you avoid, your brain basically gets confirmation that the threat was real. It reinforces those fear pathways.
So this pain-numbing app isn't just an idea, it really affects people. Like Sarah, the lawyer mentioned in the therapist's handbooks. Her story really highlights this trap.
It really does. I mean, the demands of her job, the long hours, the pressure, the competition, it all just took a massive toll. She'd wake up with this knot of anxiety, mind racing.
Yes, sleep becomes difficult, nights filled with worries.
And her mind wasn't just saying danger. It was detailing these worst-case scenarios for every little thing, every email, every late night. It made her feel trapped in this endless loop of impending doom.
That panic planner mode. It's such a powerful illustration of how these loops affect real people. And it shows that sometimes the smallest realization, just thinking, hang on, this isn't normal, that can be the start of finding a way out.
Absolutely. So, okay, what does this all mean for us? How do we actually change this? This brings us to the science of change.
Right.
Rewiring your brain.
Right. And the therapist handbooks were really clear on this. Your brain is not fixed. It's a living system. It's constantly updating itself.
And this isn't just, wishful thinking. This is based on decades of neuroscience. It's called neuroplasticity. Your brain's incredible ability to reorganize itself, form new connections, basically throughout your whole life.
And the golden rule here seems to be, where attention goes, energy flows. Neurons that fire together wire together. So when you simply notice what your brain is doing, like, oh, okay, I'm spiraling again, or whoa, there's that urge to avoid.
You press pause, like a tiny pause button. You interrupt the brain's automatic stress responses, those runaway thought patterns, and that creates a little space, a space for choice.
Okay, but I'm curious, how does simply noticing create that pause? It sounds almost too simple.
It does, but it's profoundly effective. Your attention is the fuel, right? Where you place your awareness, that's where your brain sends energy. So when you notice an old pattern, even just for a moment, you're redirecting that energy away from the automatic, unhelpful loop.
I see.
That tiny pause creates a moment of, mindful awareness. It lets you choose a different path instead of just reacting on autopilot.
Okay, this is where those ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy principles really shine, isn't it?
Exactly. ACT is a behavioral therapy designed specifically around this principle of brain change. It focuses on two core things your brain needs to rewire. First, behavioral flexibility, just the ability to choose new actions, even when it feels really hard.
Right.
And second, values-based living, anchoring those actions in what genuinely matters to you. Every single ACT skill helps create those emotionally grounded, consistent experiences your brain uses to grow new pathways.
And this works alongside CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yes, CBT complements it really well. CBT helps us spot and change those unhelpful thinking patterns and behaviors. Your mind can be like a really bad GPS sometimes, sending you in these exhausting circles with thoughts like, I'm failing or I'm never going to catch up. CBT helps you identify and challenge those cognitive distortions, those mental traps that fuel negative thoughts.
Okay, like all or nothing thinking, seeing things in extremes. Like, if I take a break, I'm a total failure.
Or catastrophizing, always expecting the absolute worst outcome. Nothing will ever get better.
Oh, yeah. Or those should statements, the rigid rules we have. I should always be available to help everyone.
Right. And emotional reasoning, where you assume your feelings are facts, like, I feel guilty about saying no, therefore saying no must be wrong.
So the goal isn't just think positive, like force yourself into it.
No, not at all. It's about developing more balanced thoughts. Thoughts that are actually believable and helpful.
Okay, this is great. So how do we actually do this? Let's get into the practical tools for breaking these loops and actually taking action. First up, rewiring through self-kindness.
Yes, and this is really active. It's not passive. It's an active rewiring practice. So when an old loop kicks in, you notice it gently, like without judgment. You acknowledge the protector, remind yourself, okay, my brain is just trying to keep me safe here. Maybe even place a hand over your heart, something physical. Then you offer a kindness phrase. Simple, sincere phrases like, it's okay you feel this way, I'm here. Or maybe, this is discomfort, not danger, and I can handle it.
So you're sending a new message to your nervous system.
Exactly. Reshaping the loop through care, not control. It's about building this internal relationship of trust instead of fighting an internal battle all the time.
That makes sense. Okay, next tool, cognitive defusion, creating space from thoughts.
Right. We tend to get fused with our thoughts, don't we? We treat them like absolute truths instead of just the mental events passing through.
Yeah, like they're a reality.
Diffusion helps create distance. So when the I'm not good enough story, or maybe the I'm going to get rejected story pops up, you just acknowledge it. Ah, okay, there's the I'm going to get rejected story again.
So you name it.
You name it, you learn to let that monster voice, as some call it, talk without it actually running the show. It's like seeing a scary movie poster versus actually being in the scary movie.
Okay, I like that analogy. Which leads nicely to values as your compass and fuel.
Yes. Values are what truly matter to you deep down, your heart's deepest longings, you could say. And crucially, they are chosen, not just discovered passively. They act as a compass for your life, not really a destination you arrive at.
And they can be the drive, the motivation, to act with courage, to do things you might otherwise avoid, even when fear or self-doubt shows up.
Precisely. The therapist's handbooks give a great example. If courage is a value for you, maybe approaching someone you're attracted to, even while thinking, I'm definitely going to get rejected, that approach is an act of living that value.
So you notice the thought, okay, I'm having the thought that I'll be rejected, but then you connect to the value. One of my values is courage, and doing this is courageous.
Yes. So I will approach this person even though I'm having this thought. It's about acting in line with your inner compass, not letting your fears dictate everything.
Powerful. Okay, this brings us to a really practical tool for tackling avoidance and procrastination. The willingness hierarchy. Your staircase to courage.
Love this one. Step 1 is mapping your avoidance territory. Get really honest. What do you sidestep? Is it specific situations, maybe certain sensations, thoughts, emotions? Maybe it's the physical feeling of anger bubbling up, or the silence after you share an opinion. Write it all down. Be specific.
Okay, map it out. Then, step 2 is building your staircase. You break down those overwhelming tasks into small, really manageable steps. So instead of the huge goal, give the presentation, your first step might literally be, think about the presentation while doing some calm breathing. Then maybe practice in front of a mirror.
Each step is only slightly higher than the last. You're teaching your nervous system to trust you again, one small success at a time. It's less about conquering fear and more about just gently expanding your capacity to handle discomfort.
Right. And then instead of rating fear, you rate willingness on a scale 0 to 10.
Exactly. 0 is like completely willing, bring it on. 10 is overwhelming, absolutely not willing right now. You arrange your steps from lowest willingness rating up to the highest.
So it's not about getting rid of discomfort.
No. It's about building your capacity to move towards what matters, even when discomfort shows up. That's a fundamental shift.
Okay. And for each step, you choose your courage toolkit. Decide beforehand which tools you'll use, like diffusion or grounding techniques.
Yeah, so you're prepared. You're not scrambling when you actually need them.
And finally, graduated exposure. Start with the easiest step on your staircase. Practice it. Note what happens. Gather those data points.
And this teaches your nervous system, hey, look, I can stay regulated even when this uncomfortable thing is happening.
Okay, another crucial tool. Boundaries. Described as your traffic laws?
Yeah, I like that. Boundaries aren't walls to keep people out. They're more like lane dividers that protect your well-being. They tell others and yourself what you can offer and what you can't.
And this is essential for avoiding burnout, right?
Yeah.
Freeing up energy for your own tasks, like saying no sometimes to unreasonable requests or just constant overwork.
Absolutely. It becomes an act of self-care. And that guilt that often pops up when you set a boundary.
Yeah.
The handbooks reframe it nicely as the price of growth. You're essentially teaching others how to respect your limits. Remember Sarah, the graphic designer example. Her boss drops this huge, urgent request that would completely derail her current project and her personal life.
Right. And her inner critic is screaming, you have to help him.
But recognizing that moment as a time to set a boundary means she chooses to protect her own well-being and her priorities, even if it feels uncomfortable initially.
Okay. And finally, grounding techniques.
Yes.
Anchoring in the present.
Yes. Crucial when you feel overwhelmed by thoughts or emotions. These techniques help you reconnect right here, right now. Think of dropping anchor.
How does that work?
You just take a few slow, deep breaths, find a stable position, maybe really feel your feet on the ground. You can add some gentle movements like shoulder rolls, just anchoring yourself physically.
Okay, and then engaging the senses.
Yeah, systematically. Notice 5 things you can see, 4 you can hear, 3 you can feel, maybe 2 you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. Or just a quick 3 senses check-in, seeing, hearing, feeling.
Or that gentle emotion labeling, just naming it. Okay, here's frustration again.
Exactly. These interrupt your brain's automatic stress spirals and help you stay in control enough to choose your next action.
Brilliant. Okay, so we have these tools. How do we make these changes actually stick?
Well, the big thing is consistency over intensity. Lasting change isn't usually linear, and it's not about grand, heroic gestures. It's built through those small, sometimes messy, courageous steps. Just consistently applying these tools, even gently, that's what retrains the neural pathways.
And resilience.
Yeah.
It isn't about never stumbling, is it?
Not at all. It's about learning to get back up, maybe with greater strength and definitely with more self-compassion. It's knowing when to pause, when to recharge, when to reset those boundaries.
The therapist handbooks talk about the strength in being unfinished, letting go of the myth that healing means becoming invulnerable.
True growth is more about learning how to fall well and then getting back up without beating yourself up about it. You're not aiming for some perfect, static state of mental health. You're cultivating psychological flexibility, the ability to adapt.
And you're not meant to do this all alone in isolation.
No, definitely not. Your nervous system actually retrains best when it feels supported. Think of it as building your ecosystem of support.
Which might include therapy.
Absolutely. Especially if patterns feel really deep-rooted. A skilled therapist can help you experience new ways of responding to challenges right there in the room and build a stronger, more resilient sense of internal security.
And authentic connection is vital too, right? Just being seen, heard, supported, that calms the brain's threat circuits.
It really does. It reestablishes those vital emotional circuits that remind us we're okay, we're not alone in this. And things like self-reflection, journaling, that can be a powerful dialogue with those protective parts, building self-trust, getting mental clutter out.
And creative expression.
Yeah, don't underestimate that. Whether it's doodling, dancing, cooking, whatever, it lets you process stuff stored below the level of language. It reduces that stress arousal and brings a bit of play back into the healing process.
Okay, now it feels important to mention the disclaimer here. This deep dive, it offers powerful, evidence-based paths to help you retrain your brain, reclaim a life aligned with your values. It's packed with practical tools, grounded in the science of psychological flexibility and neuroplasticity.
That said, we need to be really clear. This deep dive is a self-help resource. It is not a replacement for professional mental health care. If you're struggling significantly, please do reach out to a qualified professional.
Absolutely crucial. Okay, so thinking about setbacks, how do we handle those?
A helpful practice is framing it as one thing I'll try again. When a setback happens, instead of seeing it as failure, see it as feedback. What can I learn? What one small thing will I try again? It reinforces that imperfection is safe. It's part of the process.
And finally, that weekly reflection, checking your internal compass.
Yes. Just 10 or 15 minutes once a week. Ask yourself, which values did I live by this week? Which old loops showed up? How did my body actually feel? What small step did I take that reflected the person I want to be? What did I learn about myself?
It's like consolidating the learning for your brain.
Exactly. It helps your brain consolidate progress and deepen trust in this evolving self. It's an honoring, really, not homework. You're helping your brain learn. This is the direction we choose now.
So to wrap up, the core idea here is, you're not broken, you're becoming. You've explored those loops that keep us stuck, and hopefully you've seen that your brain is adaptable. It's capable of profound change.
You now have a toolkit inspired by ACT therapy, CBT, and brain science, tools to identify those protective patterns, to respond gently with self-kindness, and to take courageous actions aligned with your values.
And remember, this journey of retraining your mind, challenging old patterns, isn't just about getting things done, though that's great too. It's really about reclaiming your energy, connecting with what truly matters, and building a life that feels authentic and deeply your own. So our final thought for you today is this. What small intentional act will you choose today or maybe tomorrow to just nudge your internal compass towards the life you genuinely want to live?